Welcome back to another FPL video. Today we're talking about the template team containing the highest owned players in the game. There will be some highly owned assets that don't make the cut, but that's because we're trying to adhere to a 100 million budget, so bear that in mind as well. And some of the ownership figures that I'll be talking about might be a bit out of date, or things will change from the time I record this video by the time I upload it. So also bear that into account. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, check all the links in the description below for the FPL League, the Twitter, Instagram, channel memberships, Discord server, everything else as well, like the Patreon. I'd highly recommend it. And also the Draft Hound link to become a pro tier member and gain access to all tools you need to become a better FPL manager and enjoy the game even more. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this. Both Ramsdale and Areola are around 30% ownership. So Ramsdale is around 27.6 and Areola is 29.6. So they're the two highest owned goalkeepers in the game. But at the time of this recording, Onana hasn't been added to FPL yet. And I think if he comes in at 5 million, he could trump Ramsdale as the main goalkeeper that everyone goes for. Because Areola, let's face it, is just a second choice. And because he's 4 million, that's why he's so highly owned. But in terms of first choice goalkeepers, it's currently Ramsdale on top, but I think Onana could rival him for the #1 spot in most of our FPL teams. I think Ramsdale's a solid choice. He's got some fantastic fixtures to start the season, despite facing Man United, Man City and Spurs at home in the first 9 game weeks of the season. The other game weeks look very encouraging and there are some fantastic fixtures in there. You would expect Arsenal to get off to a good start. They look very sharp in pre-season against the MLS All-Stars. And whilst pre-season is only full of friendlies, they still can help you get off to a good start, as we saw last season where Arsenal had an amazing campaign on the tour and they translated that into a very solid start, winning 5 of their opening 5 games and having one of the best starts in Premier League history over the first 19 game weeks of the season. Areola is decent as a 4 million goalkeeper. He's the most likely to start of any of those choices alongside Forster, but Fabianski has been very impressive and West Ham have been winning all the games so far, so it might be a bit of a tough order for Areola to get into the starting 11, and he has been on international duty with France, but once he comes back, let's wait and see if he gets any opportunities to shine and whether he can take that #1 spot off Fabianski. Some of the ownership figures in the defence are absolutely ridiculous. So Estupiñán is the highest owned of any defender, coming in at around 51.4% ownership, which is absolutely insane. But with the opening 3 fixtures, you can understand that. Just bear in mind, as I've discussed multiple times in my recent videos, between Game Weeks 4 and 9, there are some extremely tough games in there, such as Liverpool and Manchester City, and that's what would put me off Estupiñán in the medium to long term. But for the first 3 game weeks, I completely understand the pick, and I think he's absolutely fantastic, and he's featured in all of my drafts so far. Then we go to the likes of Kieran Trippier, and he comes in at 34.4% ownership, despite having some extremely tough fixtures in the first 5 game weeks, also including the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool. But Kieran Trippier could still do well in Game Week 1 against Aston Villa, despite how good the Villains have been since Unai Emery's taken over. And there's also another Newcastle defender in here, in Sven Botman, who comes in around 28% ownership, and I think he's the best 4.5 million defender of choice, and that's why he's so highly owned. If he had even better fixtures to start the season, he probably would come in at 40, even 50% ownership, to be fair. And I still think he's a good option, probably even better than Trippier to start the season with, but in the medium to long term, you would expect Trippier to have those bonus points and assists that separate him from the rest of the defenders in the game, with the possible exception of Trent Alexander-Arnold. Then we go to a 4 million defender in Bell, who blanks in Game Week 2, by the way, but he still comes in at over 20% ownership. He has just finished his international duties with Jamaica as they reach the semi-finals of the Gold Cup. He should be back in time for Game Week 1, but there is that distinct possibility that he doesn't make it into the starting 11 and that he was going to be gradually eased into it because he does come back in to pre-season a bit later on. But Bell is one of the very best 4 million defenders. You've also got a few others like Baldock from Sheffield United and Bayer from Burnley, but Bell is the most popular option, and he's got some decent fixtures to start the season. And I think what ruins it a little bit is that blank in Game Week 2, which would have been against Burnley at home. The final defender is Luke Shaw, and he comes in at over 34% ownership. And in Game Weeks 1 and 3, you have to say Man United have a great chance of keeping clean sheets in those 2 game weeks. The other fixtures are a bit mixed bag, but Luke Shaw is the very best Man United defender However, with Onana coming in, and if Onana is priced at 5 million, then I think he would be the best way of covering Man United defensively, even over the likes of Luke Shaw. But we can't forget the bonus points potential for the left back. And also, he's versatile. He can play as a centre-back, get bonus points from that position. He's got a bit of attacking threat, although it's not going to be as impressive as Trippier or even Purvis Estupiñán. I have to say, all of these options are good choices, but to start the season with, I'm looking at Trippier, Botman and Bell, and I'm not so sure about them. And the rest obviously look very solid. Estupiñán, Luke Shaw, Ramsdale and Areola. But every asset will have their issues, like Estupiñán from Gameweeks 4 to 9. But I'm looking at Trippier. He's 6.5 million, and I just don't understand why he's owned by over 30% of the game. I'm guessing it's because he had the most points of any defender last season with almost 200, and he was a bonus points machine. But those fixtures are looking extremely awful. Newcastle might have some issues as well with the Champions League coming into play. If you disagree, let me know, of course. I still think Trippier overall is the second best defender in FPL, but to start Game Week 1 with, that's where I disagree, and I would draw the line. We have some extremely high-owned players in the midfield, despite the plethora of options at our disposal. Bukayo Saka comes in at over 52% ownership, and you've got the likes of Martinelli at 14% ownership, and Odegaard coming in around 20%. And while Saka is arguably more nailed, although I think Odegaard is just as nailed as him. You've got Saka on penalties as well. I still don't think Saka should have that much higher ownership than the other two. I think it's going to be very close between all three in terms of FPL points, and while Saka might be the very best, I don't think there's that much of a gap. And when you consider Martinelli is $500,000 cheaper, I think that suddenly you've got some different options and you can go against the template pick of Saka, but he remains a fantastic choice. He's going to be very popular. He was in my first draft and he might come back in for the final team selection. And you've also got the likes of Rashford coming in at 40% ownership, and you have to say he is an extremely good pick. Same with Bruno Fernandes, who isn't a differential by any means. He's also in this team, and he has over 23% ownership as well. And Man United have those really good fixtures in Gameweeks 1 and 3. The others don't look extremely great, but nonetheless, I think having Bruno Fernandes and Rashford could be your differential. And it also goes the same with Arsenal. In terms of gaining something over Saka owners, you can add a Martinelli or an Odegaard in there. The problem is you can't do that with Arsenal, Man United and Brighton, with every single one of those teams boasting many great midfield options, especially to start the season with. Then we go to other midfielders like Mbeumo, and he has over 24% ownership. He's almost got 25%. That's a quarter of FPL managers, and that's absolutely insane. He's facing Tottenham at home first, but with Ivan Toney suspended until January, Mbeumo could be the main man for Brentford. He had a fantastic record in Toney's absence last season, and he could be playing down the middle. An out-of-position midfielder coming in at 6.5 million could be an absolute bargain. Yes, there might be some of you arguing that he could be a bit of a trap. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but it is possible. And then we go to the other Brighton midfielder there of Mitoma, another one with extremely high ownership at around 37%, and that might increase even more. But I'm also looking at Pascal Gross, even Enciso, and a few other Brighton midfielders like Solly March, and they could match Mitoma, even possibly outscore him in the first 3 gameweeks of the season. And I would be very cautious with Brighton assets in general. I've currently got a triple up in my current draft, but from Gameweeks 4 to 9, that's going to be a major issue with your future planning, and you might have to book in a few transfers by the time we get to that stage. But it's a very solid midfield 5. Once again, all of these options are going to be good. That's why so many people are going for them. But there are some viable alternatives with maybe lower prices, lower ownerships, and they could make the difference from those green and red arrows to start the season, and they could get you ahead of the template. Erling Haaland is on the precipice of reaching 86% ownership, which is absolutely insane. He also reached these numbers last season, especially after the way we saw he adapted to life to the Premier League, and everyone made that switch from Harry Kane to Erling Haaland, and he was just absolutely fantastic, breaking the Premier League record for most goals scored in a single season, also adding 9 assists on top of it, 272 FPL points overall, which was the most of any player, and that's why he comes in at 14 million. We also have Gabriel Jesus, who was setting the ownership records last season until Erling Haaland trumped that, but he still comes in at over 30% ownership. It's not going to be anywhere near the numbers he was putting in pre-season last time out, and also once we got to Game Week 1, but it's still significantly high, and it's also quite a bit of a gap between him and third place in Cuckoo for the highest owned forwards in FPL. And the final forward is Sorare, who has around 11% ownership, and we're trying to meet the 100 million budget quota, and that's why I've got Sorare in there. And yes, there's going to be the likes of Nkuku, Harry Kane, Watkins, Ferguson, Isak, who all have higher ownership than Sorare, but he's still right up there in terms of overall ownership, and this is a very template team indeed. So now we're going to head over to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11, and it actually has a very high expected points figure for Game Week 1. So it's template for a reason. I still disagree with some picks, of course, and I think we can consider some lower owned alternatives, even Harry Kane over Erling Haaland. But most importantly, I'm looking at the likes of Trippier, fantastic option overall. But do we need to start the season with him when he's 6.5 million as a defender? I'm not entirely sure about that. But let's head over to FPL.team, a free resource. I'd highly recommend you checking it out. And also, it's going to help you with your future planning, visualizing your team in future game weeks. The starting 11 would be Ramsdale in goal, a back three of Trippier, Luke Shaw and Estupiñán, a midfield five of Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, Mbeumo and Mitoma, and a front two of Gabriel Jesus and Erling Haaland, who is the captain, and the vice is Saka. But according to FPL.team, the best captain in Game Week 1 is Marcus Rashford. So as you can see, the expected points does go up. So that's just another talking point maybe for you in the comment section. You've also got a solid bench of Areola, Botman, Bell and Sorare. And I say solid, you've got one decent option in there in Botman, but that might be enough. You also want to be careful of not having too much squad depth, and I definitely wouldn't have three really good options on your bench because you're going to have plenty of benching headaches in the weeks to come. Now, if we go to Game Week 2, we'd have the exact same starting 11, but the expected points does go down to 50. To be fair, though, if we do go for Erling Haaland captain, it does rise a little bit in Game Week 2, but it's yet another solid team. You do have Trippier away to Manchester City, and that definitely isn't ideal. Even Luke Shaw away to Tottenham, and that's where you can see some really difficult fixtures for some of these template picks. In Game Week 3, though, it goes back up to 60, and it also looks very solid. Once again, you'd probably go for the same starting 11 with Botman facing the likes of Liverpool in Game Week 3 and also Man City in Game Week 2, but this template team would do a pretty good job for the first 3 game weeks of the season at least. However, once we get to Game Week 4, you might have some more issues, especially with the likes of Brighton facing Newcastle, and you've got a bit of a clash there with Botman and Trippier also in your 50-man squad. If you have this exact same team, I would definitely recommend you changing a few things at the very least. And I always say this, don't go different for the sake of it. If you think this is going to be the highest scoring players and this is the squad you want to go for, then go for it. You know, I'm not going to tell you to do otherwise, but if you have this exact squad, then I think something might have gone wrong in your planning. But of course, I could be completely wrong about that. And there will be someone out there with this exact setup. And let's see how it goes. Maybe you're going to score way more points than I do. So in the end, we'll see who's laughing. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. And I'd highly encourage you to check out DraftHound and becoming a pro tier member to access so many amazing tools to help you in the upcoming season. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in my other videos as well as the deadline stream on the 11th of August, and I hope you have a great summer.